So you're thinking about buying an EV, huh? Well, I think that's spectacular. So I'm here to give you 10 things you should know before you buy an EV. So I personally don't own an EV. All my vehicles are internal combustion engines, meaning I don't have an EV, but I have driven a few. So I'm in one right now. I'm actually in the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5, and I have driven the Kia EV9, the Genesis GV70 electrified, Mustang Mach-E, base and GT, and I've driven Chevy Blazer, all EV. So I've driven a few of these. Also an Audi Q8 e-tron. So I've been in quite a few, and I've had 3 of these for 3 weeks. So I'll have this for 1 week, and I had the Genesis and the Audi for a week as well. So I'm a newbie to the EV game, but that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to share what you need to know, because this is all fresh, all new to me, what you should know before buying an EV. So the first thing you're going to want to know is the cost, and that could be a few costs. So I'm going to discuss a few of them. So the cost to buy one of these, the EV is going to be more expensive. So let's compare like the Kia Telluride. Are you familiar with that 3-row SUV? So basically the Kia EV9 is the EV version of that. That tops out at about $76,000, while the Telluride tops at about $55,000, maybe $60,000. So the EV's transaction prices are going to be more expensive. But the great thing is on EVs, you can get a better lease deal. It's all going to depend. There are some phenomenal lease deals out there to be had on EVs. So another thing that's going to cost more with EVs is insurance. Now, I don't know about this personally. These next 2 things I'm going to say I don't know from personal experience, but I've heard that the insurance is going to cost more. The parts to repair cost more, but the maintenance is going to be less expensive. Like I said, I don't own an EV. I don't have any personal experience with that. So the maintenance, generally an EV is just a battery, which is going to be the most expensive part of this, which could cost upwards of $8,000, $6,000, depending on how big the battery is, how many kilowatt hours the battery holds. So, and that's trickling down as the technology advances, but it's expensive. But the maintenance, general maintenance, like you don't have traditional transmissions on here. You don't have motor parts to deal with. It's just batteries and motors at the wheel. By motors, I mean like an internal combustion engine, which is made up of many, many parts. EVs are more simplistic, so the maintenance should be cheaper. Don't have to worry about oil changes or things like that. Number 2, there are discounts to be had on EVs, and that's by way of federal tax discounts. So the big one is going to be a $7,500 federal tax rebate subsidized by the government. And some vehicles offer like a $3,750 federal tax rebate. Some cars, it depends. Like there's only so much money in that bank to have, and certain cars offer the full amount. I smell gas, but it's not coming from this car, so that has me worried. But I'm okay in this car. It's an EV. So some dealerships will honor the $7,500 tax rebate, and they'll just give you that as a discount on the vehicle. And this changed in about 2023, maybe 2024. It was a rebate, that $7,500 tax credit rebate, the federal rebate, that was something that you had to wait until you file your taxes. But now you can get that instantly when you purchase the vehicle. So you don't have to wait till you file the taxes of that year. You can just instantly get that rebate on the vehicle, which is phenomenal. It's a great way to trade in. If you're upside down on the car, trade that thing in for an EV. You can get a lot of discounts. And like I said earlier, the leases can be very reasonable. And don't let me start about used car prices. The Mustang GT, $66,000 brand new. I test drove a 2-year-old one with like 30,000 miles. It was $30K, and I've seen them as low as $26K at the same dealership, City of Cars in Troy. Go check them out. So the number 3 thing that you should know about EVs, you cannot use every single charger that you pull up to. I found this out the hard way. So I was at work and I pulled up to some chargers. I thought I could use it because I used a public charger from this same company. So there's an app called ChargePoint, public chargers downtown Detroit. I was able to use those, but we had some at our job and I was not able to use those. So they locked those down. Those are for employees of a certain building to use these particular chargers. So I thought it was going to be my lifeline to charge this, but I was not able to use those chargers. So you're going to want to think about what chargers you use. Another thing you need to know about EVs, when you pull up to a charger, if you drive up to a charger, I had to drive about maybe 15 miles to get to a quick charger, which I'll talk about later on. And when you drive a car for that long, things get warm. And with an EV, there's a thing called battery reconditioning. So the battery isn't going to charge as fast as it can when the battery's warm. So there's actually an option in the screen. You can go to recondition the battery, so it'll keep the battery cool. So when you get to the charger, it'll charge much, much faster. So if you check out the last video I did with the Cadillac Lyriq, that's another vehicle that I had for a week that I forgot to mention. I got to the charger and it took about 30 minutes for that thing to start going to charge very fast. It was slow. Number 5, I think. If I lose track, whatever, man. So we got 3 different types of chargers. You got your regular outlet that you plug a toaster in at your house. That's going to be considered a level 1. You have a level 2 charger, which is basically the same thing you would plug your dryer into, which is going to be optimized for overnight charging. And going back to a level 1 charger, if you would plug your toaster into, it'll take you probably a week and a few days to fully charge from 0% all the way to full. That's a very slow charger. In my experience, at my house, I got like 20 miles to charge, 20 to 30 miles overnight charging. That's very slow. It's not reasonable for me. But level 2 charger, that's meant for overnight charging. You can, in 4 to maybe 8 hours, I don't have personal experience, I had to read about this fact. So 4 to 10 hours, you can go from like 0 to 80%, which is a good driving range. Some EVs, you get from like 200 to 300 miles is general in optimized situations. Some, like a Lucid, will go 400 miles. So a level 3 charger is going to be most likely a public charger, which is the fastest charging. And that's what I was just mentioning earlier. Like with reconditioning the battery, it was so slow till the battery got to its optimal temperature and that thing started to go. Some vehicles, the manufacturers say you can go from 10 to 80% in maybe 20 to 30 minutes. When you have the battery reconditioned at that certain spot or that certain optimal temperature, it will do that, and it goes by very fast. 30 minutes, you can get a great amount of juice out of those public chargers, but that's only a level 3. So if you got an hour, maybe you can get a lot of juice on those level 3 chargers, and it will cost you. In the amount of time I got, like 60% on the charge, cost me about almost $20 for that. It's much cheaper on the level 2 charger. Like 2 hours cost me about $2, and it took me like an hour and a half to get 30 miles of charge, which is okay. I was eating lunch. Another thing you need to know about these EVs, the driving experience. So they have this thing called one pedal driving. So cars traditionally have 2 pedals, 3 if you're a manual elitist like me. I like to drive with 3 pedals, but in the EV they only have 2 pedals, gas and a brake. You can almost eliminate the brake pedal with 1 pedal driving. You don't have to use this feature. I use it just because it's there, and I actually kind of like it. So this turned my wife off about EVs. She was thinking about getting her a Mach-E Mustang, and yeah, I know it's not a real Mustang, boo-hoo, but that turned her off completely from the Mustang. She did not like that. I couldn't figure out how to deactivate it, and this vehicle is activated with the paddle shifters. The left shifter increases it, the right shifter disables it. You can turn it completely off if you want to drive it like a traditional vehicle, which I think is a cool feature to have if you want, or if you don't want to use it. But I like it, and it adds to regenerative charging. So when you do use a 1 pedal driving, it's regenerative braking. So you add more juice, which helps you keep the battery life going strong, going long. So number 6, I think, you really, really have to plan out your charging. And do not let this battery go down to low percentage where everything's like shutting down. It's going to try to conserve the battery life, go into power saving mode. You're going to want to have this saved, especially if you don't have a house to plug this in at overnight or some kind of outlet where you park at. You're going to want to know where the chargers are and the apps you're going to want to have to see what the chargers, they actually have apps where you can see if somebody's charging on the chargers at that moment. But you got to plan this stuff out. Like, I almost ran out of charge in the last EV that I had. Oh, it's a new charger up there. I don't like those. But you gotta plan it out. Like if you go out to lunch, go to somewhere that has chargers where you can get some kind of return on your charging. If you know where level 3 is, I think that's the best option. You got to pay for that in public, but I think it's best to just have a charger at home, charge it overnight. You don't have to worry about things. The cars do have built-in navigations that'll point you to the best charging stations or whatever's on your route. You can plan a route through the native navigation on the vehicles, and it'll tell you where to go and where to stop, how long you got to wait. Teslas do that as well, but we're in the Ioniq 5, and it does that too. So the Lyric did that as well. So they'll let you know. And if you when the battery starts to get low, it'll be like, hey, you want to search by for near chargers? That's a helpful feature, but you got to plan it out and have that battery charged. Because these EVs, they weigh more than their internal combustion engine counterparts too. You have to get you a tow. That's embarrassing having the EV towed, ain't it? By a gas-powered vehicle. So you got to plan out your routes and have just like a charger, dedicated charger to go to. The day where I tried to charge the Cadillac Lyric, I ran into all the chargers were filled up at a Meijer. They have a lot of quick chargers there at the Meijer in Detroit, or level 3, and there's not a whole lot of those around me. So they had those, but they were all filled up, and it was a line to wait. And I said it took me 30 minutes to charge this thing from like 13% to 60%. I didn't have that kind of time to wait. I was on my way to work. And then the Tesla chargers, they were more open, but it's less. I'm not going to say it's less Teslas out there because they have like 2 vehicles in the top 10 selling vehicles of all vehicles in America. But the Tesla stations were open, and I didn't have a Tesla at the moment. I had a Cadillac, so I had to wait in line. But I just went to another gas station that was nearby, and those were roped off with yellow tape. Couldn't use those chargers, so I had to go to a third place, and that's where I ended up ultimately charging. It was like just a random business, and I just went there. It had 2 charging stations. One was occupied, one wasn't. Charged it there. Had sat there for an hour, worked from there. It was cool. I honestly don't know what number we're on now. My notes got messed up. I think it's only 9, maybe 10, I don't know. But the number, we'll just call it 8. The number 8 thing that you should know, that is the EVs are more practical than their internal combustion engine counterparts. Another example that I used earlier, the Kia EV9 is the EV version of the Kia Telluride. It has a trunk in the front. You can store things up there. The Telluride has an engine and washer fluid and all that stuff in the front, so you can't use that space. These EVs, they don't have axles going down if it's an all-wheel drive variant, which leads to the hump at the bottom of the floor. You know the hump that's in the back seat if you got all-wheel drive. But this EV, this one in particular, it's got so much space. I'm going to have to pan around up in here. It's a lot of interior space, a whole lot. Storage space, cubby holes everywhere. You can store a lot of things in here. They're just more practical. And then, like, especially a dedicated EV platform, take a Tesla. Trunk in the front, trunk in the back. Like, some of these EVs have, like, compromised space in the front. They kind of look like a Lamborghini where it's, like, limited little cubbies up in the front. But some of them got full-size trunks in the front. And that's just due to the packaging, the batteries. Like, there's no engine that needs to be in the front. The rear, there's nothing back there anyway. And the batteries sit low in the car, so they can just package it in such a practical way that you have more space in the vehicle. The second to the last point, because I have no idea what number I'm on. I'm sorry if you're meticulous like that. But this is just, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. Trust me. So that is, the cold weather will obliterate your expected mileage per charge. So the last vehicle that I had, it was at like 20 degrees. I got the car delivered to me with like 300 and something miles to a charge. It would have been depleted, completely depleted by like 120, 140 miles tops. So cold weather is going to basically half your expected miles on a charge. So that's a bummer. I'm in Michigan. It's cold here half the year. Well, not half the year. At least 25-30% of the year is cold. Like today it's cold. This Ioniq 5 lost about 10 miles to empty overnight just sitting outside. It was 25 degrees when I woke up this morning. Then I got things on like the heated seats, heated steering wheel as well. But batteries just lose power when it's cold. That's the optimal operating temperature for a battery is like 60 to 80 something degrees. That's just the physics of any battery. You take a Duracell outside, it's just going to lose power in the cold weather as opposed to like 60 to 80 degree weather. No way around that yet. That's just how they are. And it's going to drastically decrease your expected miles. So if you live in a cold climate, you definitely got to go back to the other steps that I said. You're going to want to have a plan and a backup plan, an emergency plan. Because this cold weather does not play when it comes to those miles to empty. And the final thing, no idea how many, I understand, like I said, the one thing that has changed the game, so Tesla sells the most EVs out of all manufacturers. And that's a bad thing, I guess, if you hate Tesla, but I don't care if you like them or not. But Tesla, they opened up their supercharger. They have the biggest supercharger of all EVs, the supercharging network, and they opened up their superchargers to cars that are not Tesla. So, like I said, I was at Meyer. There was open, oh my God, traffic. There was open spots on the Tesla charger. So I could have used that had I had that charger. I don't know if you got to pay for that, but if you do have that charger, you can go to the Tesla charging stations. Thankfully, Tesla opened up their big network of charging stations to multiple manufacturers. I know Ford is one of them. Don't know the other ones. I just read one article that said Ford. So that's all that I think. That's all that I know in my experience. What you should know about EVs, especially if you're thinking about buying one. So hopefully this helps you. Those of you that own an EV, please chime in and let me know any other things. Like I said, I probably own EVs for a total of 3 weeks altogether, maybe 4 weeks. So my personal experience is limited. But for those of you who have been dealing with EVs on a day-to-day basis, please let us all know what that's like. So we want to know more. So we can maybe think about buying an EV one day if that's what we want to do. So that's why you clicked on this video, right? Or you're just a loyal supporter of my channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. So that's all I got to say about that, folks. Hope this video helps you. You all make sure you drive safe, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace out.